yeah, my previous employers, Neil's Yard Dairy, cheese shop here in London, they had a customer in the States in New York, who wanted to learn about how to run a cheese shop. So because I was expendable, they sent me over there for a couple of months to teach these Americans how to run a cheese shop. So I found myself in New York for a couple of months. And while I was there, day in, day out, I'd be teaching the guys working there all about cheese, about how to look after it, about what it means, about historical recipes, about styles, about different types of milk, about the farmer who made this cheese. And then we go out for a beer after work, as you do. And they took me to these bars, random places in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, for example, that had amazing beers. And they would tell me the same things about all these beers. Who made them, what sort of recipe, why it's like this, what it's supposed to be, who made it. And this was all information that I had never come across before in my life. And also beer styles and flavors I'd never come across in my life. It was like, where has this been all my life? It made perfect sense. They were treating beer in the same way we would treat cheese. I could understand exactly what they meant, but I'd never had any input or any information about beer given to me ever, other than that I would drink lots of it and have fun in a pub. So I came back from the States and felt should start a brewery, because there was these sort of beers and this sort of experience that I had in the States that I hadn't had over here, and I felt it was necessary. Yeah, I suppose that was 6 years ago when I went to the States, 7 years maybe, and then about 2.5 years later we started brewing. So the brewery's just over 4 years old now. It was late 2009 when we started. We started off with a 600-liter system. Just me at the beginning, and now there are 10 of us. Our system brews 3,200 liters at a time. We brew about 3 or 4 times a week. So it's 5,000 hectoliters a year, maybe this year. The last year we have figures. Last year we exported maybe 5% of our beer. So most of it stays in London.
Oh.
It's not because there's no demand out there. Yes, there is. We could export a huge amount, but it's much more important for us to look after our local market. These are our friends. This is our city. This is what we care about. And we also, as you mentioned, care about drinking beer fresh. So you can obviously take care of these things much easier if you have a direct relationship with the customer, the pub, the restaurant, etc. So I think about 70% stays in London, 75% stays in London, 25 goes around UK, and then it's about 5% we export. Right now it's pretty much Spain and Italy, and very recently we sent some beer to Sweden and to France. Our focus is very much on London. Again, it's the American inspiration for this. When I came back from the States, I started homebrewing, and then I started looking for all these American beers I tried over there. Of course, you couldn't find most of them, but some American beers you could find. You get really excited, you find a bottle, you open it, you try it, and something, you kind of look and go, is that the same beer I just was drinking in Brooklyn? And then you realize it's 6 months old. And all those amazing flavors, the whole essence and the whole point of that beer's existence is just gone. So, it's the principle of drinking beer fresh. It's like, it's a much healthier world if every place has its own breweries and you drink the local beer fresh, rather than having lots of breweries exporting beers all over the place. A little bit of that is very exciting, and we love trying certain beers from different places that wouldn't be possible for us to get if there wasn't a certain exchange of things. But I think as a general principle, it's far healthier in many ways, taste-wise, socially, economically, to drink local beer. And all the pale hoppy beers, so the pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs, table beer, they all have 4 months from bottling. Now we bottle everything alive, so it needs time to condition in the bottle first. So it's 2 weeks after that time, by the time it's ready to drink, carbonated, conditioned. When we put 4 months on it, it is slightly ambiguous, those 4 months, because in one sense you want to make it, I think in a lot of cases you would like it drunk slightly quicker, but then you have a reality principle, which kind of means that you also have an obligation maybe to your customers to make it possible for them to sell it within this amount of time, depending on various factors. I would say that about 90-something% is drunk within 2 months of bottling, and I think that's acceptable. But there are also tastes and other people's opinions involved. I mean, our beer will be quite different at 4 months. It'll be much smoother. The hops will have mellowed out, so it'll be much more malty, slightly rounder, honey, sweet. And kind of a little bit, the bitterness tends to be a bit sharper. And I can understand why people might enjoy that more. When they're young, which is how we like them, they tend to be a little bit, they're edgy. They're full of potential, but you sometimes be a bit worried they might just explode, or, just in terms of the flavor. It's quite intense, and the flavors are really ephemeral. But all those aromatics you get from the hops, it's really just about the hops. They degrade as it gets older. And old hops are something which we can't stand. It is also a matter of preference, just how we like our beer. There are people who like to buy some and keep them for 6 months. The best before date is a suggestion. It's our recommendation. It's not a health thing. The beer is not going to in any way injurious to health or anything like this. It's how we enjoy it. And so we put 4 months, but we try and emphasize with customers just to, basically anybody who buys beer from us, they buy beer that they can have it all gone within a month or 6 weeks. That's generally. Yeah, there are 10 of us here now. A few kind of working 3 days or 4 days a week. Our rhythm is usually we're brewing 3 or 4 times a week, so therefore we're bottling also 3 or 4 times a week, bottling and kegging. There's always a day of just tidying up and organizing stuff. On the other side of the counter, there's answering emails, answering phone calls, and sending out orders. I mean, as I said before, most of our beer is sold in London, and we deal with most of that directly ourselves. So. We look after that aspect of it. And then the one change to that routine is on Saturdays. So Saturdays we open up to the public as a shop or a bar. And again, it's the same guys. We're all doing it here on Saturdays. You can buy bottles to take away, or you can come and sit in here and have a beer on the rack. And the way we've always worked has been that we try and get everybody involved in every aspect of the business as much as possible. So everybody who works here brews, everybody bottles, everybody answers the phone, everybody puts together orders. So there isn't that much of a hierarchy. Everybody can do everything and everybody understands the whole business. So that when you're looking at a beer, you understand exactly from start to finish, within the physical brewery, everything that goes on. So that I think, it just makes sure that everybody is responsible for every aspect. And I think that means that people feel a bit more strongly towards what they do. It's perhaps a little bit more work, but we have very good people here. If they are completely trustworthy, then that's not a problem. I mean, I think the way we work hasn't been consciously thought out before in terms of a model that we would follow. To a sense, it's grown organically, but it has grown organically in accord with certain principles, I suppose, that I have, and maybe certain experiences that I've had working in other places, working in places perhaps where you have a very rigid structure, where you fulfill a function within a bigger system, or working within a structure where you have a certain amount of freedom, I suppose, and therefore a certain amount of responsibility to look after things yourself. I think it comes down to those things, freedom and responsibility. I think when you have people looking after everything, there's much more responsibility. They have to look after everything. Then, I think they engage much more with what they're doing. Because, sometimes in a system, you can rely on other parts of the system to do things. Whereas here, in a sense, you're relying on yourself. So I think it makes you much more aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. And I think it makes you care more about what you do. So the same principles are involved in brewing. Like for example, as you probably know, with the pale ales and the India pale ales, we'll change the hops in each recipe every time we brew. Mm-hmm. And so that's those sort of decisions or tweaks you can make. So a little different malt, or maybe we'll ferment at a different temperature or mash at a different temperature. Whoever's brewing has the ability to make those decisions themselves. And because they're also the same people bottling and selling, then they get to be able to perceive the changes that have been made and how it affects, the taste of the beer, or, different things that appear later on in the process further down the line. It's also, I don't know that necessarily the healthiest way to work. So working in this way with really good people that you trust means that you're also allowing them to help create the environment that they want to work in. Because I think, that if the healthiest environment, I suppose what's important to us is that we have an environment that's healthy and enjoyable, and that we make the best beer possible. And I think to make the best beer possible, if you have people that are happy in what they're doing, they will make better beer than people who are, they are just following orders or following a rota or a system, or that's how I feel about it anyway. Mm-hmm. So in the service of making good beer, we want to make this a place where everybody enjoys coming into work, everybody gets on really well to each other, and there's a certain kind of flatness, so that you don't have so many kind of passing down of orders and somebody says something to get somebody else to clean something somewhere else. If everybody kind of involves themselves on a relatively equal level, then I think it functions as a community of people together much more healthily. Sounds like a question of, like in biology, I suppose you'd have the question of nature versus nurture. Somebody's genetics versus the environment in terms of the influence on who they are. And in those arguments, I always come down much more on the side of environment than genetics. I always feel that you can change things by changing the situation. That it's not always that certain things are essentially have to be this way because your genetics say you must be like this. It's I'm not saying that that's universally the case, or that that certain things aren't genetically fixed. So I suppose my influence here is kind of the genetic one. So I started the brewery with, and but the thing is that now we're here. So now we're 4 years older and there's 10 of us. And as I was explaining with the way we were working, it's a lot up to us as a group in terms of deciding and becoming something else. So, what has started off, I think, there's a certain openness to how we work and how I started, but that openness means that you can quite dramatically change the initial starting point, because we didn't have a particular structure or, style that we, I didn't start off the brewery with a direct plan as to this is what I want to do and this is what I want to be at a certain point in time and this is how I want to work. They have kind of evolved organically, and they've evolved with the other guys that are working. So, it has become something else from what it started, and it's become much less about me and much more about the group, which I think is much healthier. I suppose I'm a bit wary in general of kind of over focus on, the founder or brewer as the person who, it's kind of, it's a bit like the lead singer in the band always gets more attention than the drummer, and this sort of, because they also act as a, I'm talking to you here, I'm acting as the spokesperson for the brewery. But I think that often slightly distorts the reality of the situation in the sense that, this doesn't exist unless there are people out there doing other jobs, and, some of them, yeah, would do a better job at certain things than I can. And also, the other thing it does sometimes is takes away the focus, I suppose. I mean, we like very much our focus to be on the beer. You know, we don't do marketing, promotion, advertising. You know, our labels are very minimal. You know, they don't say anything other than, you know, this is what I am. Basically, that's what we're trying to do. And you know, sometimes too much focus on me as a person, I think, takes away. That can be distracting. You know, I mean, it's really great to engage with people with wonderful stories and interesting histories about their beer, for example. But sometimes that story and that history can become more. It means it's actually harder to taste the beer itself. And sometimes I feel that the less I say or the less you know about the brewery itself, the more you would be able to appreciate the beer, because that's what we want to do most of our talking here. It's the beer. But you know, that's an oversimplification. It's, you know, we are still here and we still enjoy talking to people. It's not like we're robots. You know?